All right, we're going to do the running backs today. Cheese list, OnlyFans list. Again, make sure to subscribe. Check out the East Carolina series I'm doing in College Football 25. And before I start, I think this is a mandatory shout out just because if anybody else did this, they would be crowned like kings of the industry. But since I do it and you're all jealous of me and you do everything in your power to not give me credit, we know how this works. I kicked Matthew Berry's ass last year, and I didn't just kick his ass. I completely humiliated him, and there's no other way to describe it. So if we can continue to promote that, because I don't need any more evidence other than the fact that the guy who is the face of fantasy football, could we make him more than a 5-year-old child? Because that's what we did last year. And we'll do it again this year. That video is on the way. But NFL season is fastly approaching. Cut day's coming. Thursday is the first game, so let's get on with it. We're going to start with the cheese list. And again, what the cheese list means is it is supposed to represent hey, this guy is being way overranked. Let's just cross him off the fucking list before I even get the draft started. So that's what the plan is. And we'll do the OnlyFans afterwards. So I got a lot of shit to do. I'm losing my mind. I'm doing the best I can. I'm a one-man team. If you want more, maybe think about lining my pockets because I can help you out. We have the evidence. Anyway, let's do item number 1. The very first person on the list here is Jonathan Brooks. We are not drafting Jonathan Brooks under any circumstance. We're just not drafting Jonathan Brooks under any circumstance. I don't really know why you would be interested in Jonathan Brooks. It doesn't make any fucking sense to me. But we'll continue to just hammer the drum of what the fuck are you people thinking. The argument for Brooks just makes absolutely no fucking sense. First and foremost, he tore his ACL in November, which is a big difference than tearing your ACL in the beginning of the year. Like Jonathan Brooks, so he tore his ACL November 11th. We're way less than a year removed. Like we're going to have to go multiple weeks into the season before we even get close to him being 1 year removed from a torn ACL. This is the biggest problem I have with it. Like, guys, we're not just talking about a guy that tore his ACL. We're talking about a rookie that tore his ACL. Like, we do get that, right? A couple things that need to be said on Jonathan Brooks here. He tore his ACL November 11th. It's going to take multiple weeks just to get him 1 year removed from the ACL. He's going to be on the PUP list. He's probably going to miss 5 weeks of the season. So not only are you willing to draft a rookie running back, you got to bench him for 5 weeks. And this is let's keep continuing. I don't like running backs on bad teams. The Panthers had the worst record in the league. Even if Brooks does come back, and even if he is successful, what are the chances the Panthers are successful? Because they have to have the fucking lead for him to actually get his touches. And if you want to say, well, he'll get some passing work, Maybe he'll get some passing work. But how valuable will it be in the Carolina Panthers offense? Who knows? Number 2, are we sure that Canales is really going to help? Now, I think he's an upgrade over Frank Reich just based on the fact that Frank Reich was a total douchebag. But these numbers don't lie here. Last year, Tampa Bay, 32nd in the league in rushing. The year before that, 32nd in the league in rushing. Dave Canales has shown no ability to produce a high-functional running game. He's shown no ability. He's shown absolutely no ability to produce a high-functioning run attack. None. So explain to me why we're going out of our way to draft Jonathan Brooks when the head coach they hired can't run the ball. 32nd in the league in rushing. All right, so if we go back to the rankings, right, you'll notice that, and I'm not even going to attempt to pull this up as all this shit's loading. It's insane. Jonathan Brooks is RB 32 on Fantasy Pros. On Yahoo, he's RB 35. On ESPN, he is RB 32. And on Matthew Berry, he is 34. So he's ESPN, he's 32. So he's anywhere between 32 and 35. That's a hard pass for me. That's just a total hard pass for me. You're basically drafting this guy to be one of the very first non-starting running backs in the league, and I'm just not willing to go there, especially when he's missing time, Dave Canales, he's shown no ability to be able to run the ball. You're talking about joining the Carolina Panthers, who suck. And there's no guarantee he's better than Chuba Hubbard or Miles Sanders. And I'm not saying that competition is great, but we're talking about it back. Let's just go back to the Texas days. So he couldn't beat out Bijan Robinson, but not only could he not beat out Rajon Robinson, he couldn't beat out fucking Roschon Johnson, who sucks. Like, maybe Brooks will turn into a quality back, but it ain't sure as fuck ain't happening this year. Nobody that couldn't beat out Roschon Johnson is just going to immediately usurp into a great starting running back in the NFL. So Jonathan Brooks is a hard pass, and wherever he's fucking ranked, please just do yourself a favor and take Nick Chubb instead. I think that's probably the best way I can summarize this. Next up on the list is Raheem Mostert. Yes, Raheem Mostert makes the cheese list. 18 touchdowns. Doesn't that kind of remind you of anybody? All right, so doesn't this remind you of anybody? And Mostert's the better player. But if you go back, Jamal Williams had 17 touchdowns. Everybody fucking overdrafted him because they thought 17 touchdowns would come in their way again. And then when Williams took on that Mark Ingram role, he couldn't handle it. When it comes to Mostert, he had the best year of his fucking life. He rushed for over 1,000 yards the first time at age 31. He scored 18 touchdowns. If you want Mostert in fantasy, the price isn't outrageous. And if we can go through these rankings, the price on Mostert isn't outrageous. It's RB23 on Fantasy Pros, on Yahoo. The screen sharing is a disaster. Oh my God. I can't fucking advance. On Yahoo, he is RB22. Wow, he's 34 on ESPN, which is way lower than a lot of the other places have him. That's interesting. Matthew Bear has him at 23. So he's 22, 23, and then ESPN has him at 34. So that's actually, I think, the biggest disparity that we've seen on any of these lists yet. If we go back to fantasy finishes last year, Mostert was RB2. And again, as we described, if you say, hey, RB22, RB23 to get the RB2 of last year, that makes sense to a lot of people. I just would disagree with that premise. I don't know. Like, I don't buy it. Like, again, I like Mostert, the talent. He's big, 205, and runs like the fuck. Like, he's got a lot of speed to him. This is the problem I have with it. So, Devone Achane is taking over as the lead back, or will. Who, if we go back to Achane, guy had a fucking monster rookie season. Had a monster rookie season. 800 yards in 11 games, 7.8 yards per carry, 197 receiving yards. Like, I just think if you go to some of the things that I said about Achane last year, like, Achane was one of my favorite running backs in the entire draft. This tells you everything that you need to know about how I felt about Achane coming out of college last year. This dude rocks. Like, I wanted him bad. And if you go and watch my NFL draft simulators from that draft class, I don't know how many times I picked him in the third or fourth round. This was the guy that I wanted, which is why I gave the Lions an F for their Jahmyr Gibbs pick, because why the fuck would you take a running back at pick 12 when you could have traded down 6 times and got Achane in the third round? But be that as it may, like, this dude's taken over. So not only you got to deal with Achane, but now you got to deal with Jaylen Wright. So if we go back to Mostert, they just drafted Jaylen Wright. He's going to be a factor. So now you're dealing with another piece of the backfield. And this is really the biggest piece that I would say about Mostert. He's had 3 total two. We'll go with 3. He's had 3 seasons where he's played at least 15 games. 3. 1, 2, 3. This guy's been in the league for a long fucking time. Since 2015, he's been in the league. He's had 3 seasons where he's played 15 games. Like, he's hurt a lot. And now he's coming off back-to-back years where he was actually healthy. I would fade this. Like, if I can have Mostert for free, I'll take him. But he's no longer free. And I'm not willing to pay those kind of prices for a guy that's no longer free. All right, next up on the cheese list is Alvin Kamara, who, yes, actually was decently productive in terms of fantasy because he was suspended, and then when he came back, he did all right. Like 5 touchdowns, which beat his last 2 years. And then he had some receiving work again. Still was a factor in the receiving game. His usual 75 targets, those were there. You know, if you play in your nonsense PPR league, he was still picking up catches, so he finished actually all right in terms of fantasy. If we go to fantasy finishes, he was, and again, I don't play in these bullshit PPR leagues. You're a loser if you do. But in regular normal leagues, he was RB24 and was suspended at the top of the year and then didn't play the last week of the season. So Kamara, he gave you some good weeks, especially on a points per game basis. Points per game basis, can we do that? Points per game basis, he was much higher. He was 14th. So not bad, right? Not bad. This is the problem that I have with Kamara. The New Orleans Saints are the credit card team of the NFL. If you want to pull up all their SPO track stuff, my computer is just not working fast enough to do all that. But if you just pull up all their SPO track stuff, like, they are the credit card team of the NFL, and this is the one guy they haven't taken care of. Like, they gave a new contract to Derek Carr this offseason, who played like shit. And they even said, you know what, we'll double down on Derek Carr. We'll give him more money. Taysom Hill. How many times have they redone Taysom Hill's contract? Like, we're talking about them redoing guys who, shit, like, I think their own fucking fan base would be happy to move on from. The one guy they haven't redid his contract is Kamara. I just think, you know, people tell you who they are, believe them. A lot of the guys in his draft class, Dalvin Cook, fell off the face of the fucking earth. Like, I think we're running up against the clock here. Kamara, this is basically a contract year for Kamara. This is the last year of basically his deal, unless they decide to do something about it. And until this point, they have not. And let me also say this, because I genuinely believe this to be the case. I think this suspension helped them. I do. And I've told this story a lot, but I think it's 100% accurate. So he doesn't come in, and immediately he gets big work. So the first week without him, all right. But then he starts to hit his stride. 22 carries, 19 carries, 17 carries, 17 carries. He didn't do that the rest of the year. He didn't have 17 carries in another game the rest of the year. Like, I'll tell the story again. My second year of college, I was suspended the first half of the year. When I was not suspended and I started day one, I never felt healthier. Like, I never felt healthier. This guy missing 3 games was a total blessing in disguise. And the numbers back it up. 22 carries, 80 yards and a touchdown. 19 carries. It's a work in a receive. 12 receptions this game with 17 carries. Like, as soon as he wasn't suspended, he came out like a firecracker. I don't see that sustaining itself over a full healthy season. Like, and again, we'll go back to when Tom Brady was suspended for Deflategate. It was the best thing that ever happened to him. He played the rest of the year like a firecracker, and they won the Super Bowl. Like, these guys missing these games at the start of the year to be a little bit more fresh, it's a great thing. It's a great thing. Now, the second part of this, I'm not really sure in terms of, is Kendre Miller going to do anything? The coach speak on Kendre Miller hasn't been good. You got Jamal Williams, but that coach speak hasn't been good either. I don't know, man. Like, if we go to the rankings, Fantasy Pros has him as 19. Yahoo has him at 17. Wow, ESPN has him as 11. Whoa. And then Matthew Berry has him at 16. So that's actually kind of all over the place. Fantasy Pros 19, and then ESPN has him as a high of 11. I'm fading all of that. I would say, in terms of Kamara, I would give Kamara not in the top 20. Let's not put Kamara in the top 20. I just think there's too much risk. And we're talking about a guy who plays behind one of the worst offensive lines in the league. There's no juice to the Saints offense, none. And we're talking about a guy who has never been he's like we're 4 years removed from him being an efficient runner. Like when you're averaging 3.9 yards per carry, he's dealing with a back injury. He missed a ton of time with a back injury this camp. I don't know. Like, I'm always going to take the Ricky Bobby approach in terms of fantasy football. If you ain't first, you're last. I don't see any upside here. Like, best case scenario, I know what I'm getting out of Kamara, and he gives me RB 15. Best case. I think there's about 800 scenarios where there's a worst case, and he's in the RB 30 range. Next up is Rachaad White. Last year, if we go to Rachaad White, or if we go to fantasy finishes, last year Rachaad White was RB 8, which not fucking bad. Hey, not fucking bad. RB 8, pretty good. I just think things are changing. And I'd be very concerned. Number one, the guy hasn't shown an ability that he's even good. Like, 3.7 yards per carry, 3.6 yards per carry. Is any of that knocking your socks off? This is the biggest number right here. Last year, he had 272 attempts. And he had 70 targets out of the backfield. Is that really going to repeat? We're talking about a guy who had over 340 touches last year. I don't think they even want it to repeat. They draft Bucky Irving, who's going to have a role. I think Sean Tucker's all right. But, like, he finished that high because of volume. Is he really getting that much work again? I don't buy it. Like, I just don't buy it. For a guy that has shown no ability to be efficient, I think Bucky Irving's the better player. If Bucky Irving eats into any of this, even marginally, let's say again, we live in this range of outcomes. Chinese farmer, maybe. If Bucky Irving even eats into 10% of this, he's way lower than RB8, and that's the best case scenario. Let's say Bucky Irving eats 10% of this. Well, he's not nearly as good because all of his numbers are due to fucking volume. He's a volume play. He was a volume play last year. So now you draft Bucky Irving. Let's say he runs for 220 times. Like that's going to be a sharp difference in his fantasy value. So if we go to where he's actually being ranked, and again, this is the craziest thing about it. Fantasy Pros has him as RB 16. Yahoo has him as RB 15. ESPN has him as RB 14. Matthew Berry has him as RB 15. So he's 14, 15, or 16, regardless of which list you look at. He's not in the top 20 for me. And it really comes down to just volume. Like, look, man, that's a huge fucking number. And by the way, they lost their offensive coordinator. We don't know what it's going to look like with Liam Cohen. Like, 272 fucking carries? Can we just do that quick? This dude, Rachaad White, was tied with Christian McCaffrey for the league in carries, and 8 behind the leader in Derrick Henry. And that's not including all the receiving numbers, which Bucky Irving is a good receiving back. And by the way, just look at the number of yards that McCaffrey had compared to Rachaad White with the same workload. Like, and again, last year Tampa Bay won the division. If they simply just lose one more game and aren't the division winners, if they simply play with the lead less, this number is coming down without Bucky. Like, this number could easily be here, and he's still running to the ground. Like, this is the craziest thing. If he simply gets Barkley level of volume, his fantasy numbers are coming way down. So I would be very concerned about Rachaad White. Again, some of this thing with fantasy, you have to play the stock market. You have to say, okay, buy low, sell high. But nobody ever fucking does that. And again, I tell you this all the time. You have to trick your brain. You have to say, where will these idiots rank Rachaad White in 2025? I think it's going to be way lower than RB15 because of all the reasons that I said. Next, Joe Mixon. I don't get it. I don't really get the buzz on Joe Mixon. Let's scroll down. This is the same conversation I had with Kamara. Those guys in Kamara's draft class, Dalvin Cook, they've already started to fall off the face of the earth. I think the Bengals moved on for a reason here. He's never been an efficient runner. And I think he looked bad last year. Like, I truly think he looked bad last year. 4 yards a carry. He had 250. The volume got him here. If you just go to fantasy finishes last year, he finished as RB6. But it was all volume. He had a full healthy season. He didn't miss a single fucking game. And it was all volume. All volume. I understand that the Texans, they needed a running back. But we're talking about a Texans team that ranked 30th in rushing yards last year. They add Stephon Diggs. They already have Nico Collins and Tank Dell. They're going to want to throw the ball. And yes, this is a Shanahan system where they're going to run it. But what are the odds he gets 257 carries again? What are the odds he gets 64 targets out of the backfield? And what are the odds that he's even good again? Because I think he's starting to decline. And that's just based on eye test stuff. I think he started to decline. Like, I think the Bengals moved on for a reason. I really do. I think the Bengals moved on to a younger option for a reason. And not only that, and again, I'm not the biggest Dameon Pierce believer in the world, but is he gonna have 257 carries again? I think Pierce is gonna eat into it at least a little bit. And I think Akers has looked really good in the preseason, and I think Akers could eat into it a little bit. So if he's just down to 200 carries for this, which this right here seems reasonable, and I think the receiving stuff is even a little high. But if you go back to fantasy finishes just the year prior to 2022, he was RB. Did I pass him? So he was RB 13 and he missed 3 games. I think that's even a little high. I think back end RB 20, like outside the top 20, maybe inching towards 20. I don't know, man. I'm just not in on Mixon. If we go to the rankings, here, you have to spend for Mixon. RB 14 on Fantasy Pros. Here we go. The same fucking bullshit. RB 14 on Yahoo, ESPN, RB 13, and then Matthew Berry, he's RB 12. So he's 12, 13, or 14 on every fucking list that you read. If you just go back to this 2022 season, he was RB 13, but that's 2 years removed from that. I think I just watched Joe Mixon last year, and I don't think he was any good. And I'm not sure this is is this really an upgrade on offense? Now, Burrow missed a ton of time last year, but those carry numbers were because Burrow missed a ton of time last year. Okay. I'm just not willing to go down this road, especially if I have to buy him at a premium. I have to pay a premium for Mixon. I'm not getting a discount on Mixon. That's because the new car smell, I guess. I'm just not in on that. I'm not in on that. So next, Travis Etienne. Hard fade for me. I will always be anti-Travis Etienne. Like, look, man, 3.8 yards per carry. He had a ton of work. But if we just go to Bigsby was basically, hey, look, man, let's try again next year. Bigsby had 50 carries on the whole season. And they basically shut him down in the second half of the year. Like, he had 4 targets. Like, they basically just said, look, dude, steep learning curve. We're going to try again next year. But if we go to just his preseason stuff, Bigsby has looked really good in the preseason. And again, it's just preseason. I'm not going to get carried away. But if he's like, hey, 4.5, 5 yards a carry and looks like a functional fucking running back, that's going to eat into Etienne's workload. And I believe that it will. 267 carries. They've said in the past, let's go to this. I've never liked Etienne coming out. I've never liked him. That year that I wrote this post, he got hurt and it worked out in my favor. And then, so I think this is the newest one, but they've basically said, they've come out and said, hey man, I would like Etienne even came out and said, I don't want as much work. Like Etienne's coming out and saying, hey man, like I'm good. I don't need all these carries. But I just never liked Etienne coming out of college. They've said multiple times. We can find it, right? I know they came out and said this. Here you go. Here you go. We don't even need to click them. But they like, there's a clear divide. Hey, let's get his workload down. And if we go to his stats last year, 267 carries, 73 targets out of the backfield. That's a lot of work. I think those numbers are coming down. I am a Tank Bigsby believer. I don't care what you say. I think Bigsby can play. And last year, Etienne finished as RB3. No chance that's happening again. No chance that's happening again. So if you go to the rankings, Etienne is number 10 on Fantasy Pros. He is number 11 on Yahoo. He is number 9 on ESPN. And he is number 10 on NBC. Give me the over on all of that. Give me the he's not a top 10 running back. Give me the he's not a top 10 running back. He's been hurt before. He missed his rookie season. They're clearly worried about his workload. I think Bigsby is going to have a role in the offense. And if Bigsby does have a role in the offense, he's a big back. AKA he's the power back. Like he might be a touchdown guy. He might steal touchdowns. So if let's say this number comes down to 200, let's say he gets 40 receptions. I don't know. I'm all good. And again, this is a Jacksonville Jaguars team that they actually don't like running the ball. Like Doug Peterson, he loves airing that fucker out, which I guess maybe that even helps Etienne. This is poor man's Lamar Jackson for me in terms of I'm just never going to bet on Etienne. Like I didn't like him coming out of college. I thought it was a travesty. He got picked in the first round. He should have never been picked in the first round. The idea that you're going to use a Jalen Ramsey first round pick on a running back who averages 3.8 yards per carry is laughable. Next up on the list is Kyren Williams, who had a fucking year. Had a great year. 228 carries, 1,144 yards, 12 touchdowns. He had some work in the receiving game, 3 receiving touchdowns. The guy went nuts. The guy went nuts. He finished as RB4 last year and missed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. He missed 5 games and finished as the RB4, which is crazy, which is absolutely insane. My problem is, and this is going to be foreshadowing to the receiver thing, but we're talking about because I'm going to have 2 Rams on this list, and they kind of fall into the same category, but one's a receiver. We're talking about a former 5th-round pick who hit. But now I'm being asked to invest heavy premium resources into that former 5th-round pick. I don't know, dude. Like, if we go to the rankings, Fantasy Pros has him as RB8. Yahoo has him as RB8. Politics. ESPN has him as RB7. And then Matthew Berry has him as RB9. I don't here's the number one question that I'm concerned about. And I don't know how you couldn't be concerned about it. A, he's been hurt both years. He missed a ton of time as a rookie. He missed a ton of time in 2023. He's been hurt a lot. And now I got to deal with fucking Blake Corum. Who I don't think you just take in the 3rd round to just not use him. Here he is, expected to be an important part of the offense. Okay. Like, how are you not worried about Blake Corum? That would be my question. How are you not worried about Blake Corum? Because I don't think you just take Blake Corum to not use him. And Blake Corum was drafted higher than Kyren Williams. And I'm not saying anybody's better than anybody else. But man, if you're going to take away some of this volume, guy scored 15 total touchdowns last year. And no, there wasn't another running back they even fucking used. Like, if you just go to Rams player stats 2023, they didn't even fucking use anybody else. Even in the games Kyren Williams was hurt, nobody did anything. So look at. This tells you everything you need to know. Royce Freeman played in 14 games. He had 77 carries. That ain't happening. And that was with Williams hurt. Ronnie Rivers, 32 carries. Darrell Henderson, 46 carries. And that was with him hurt. I think Corum's going to get a big workload. If Corum's over 100 carries and gets some receiving work, would anybody be surprised? You're asking me to take Kyren Williams as a top 8 fucking running back. So if I'm drafting, that means I'm passing on Pacheco, I'm passing on Achane, I'm passing on Josh Jacobs, I'm passing on Kenneth Walker, I'm passing on James Cook. And I'm not just passing on those guys. We're talking about multiple rounds, multiple dollars, depending on the format you're playing. I have to spend big resources on Kyren Williams. I basically have to decide, am I taking him or Barkley? Because they're ranked right next to each other. And if that's the option I'm given, I'm just gonna take Barkley. Why would I take Williams over Barkley when they're ranked around the same spot? Or Williams, it's basically, do I want Kyren Williams or Jahmyr Gibbs, or Kyren Williams or Derrick Henry? Those are the conversations you have to have with yourself if I'm taking Kyren Williams that high. Give me Gibbs, Henry, and Barkley, no question about it, over Kyren Williams, and they cost around the same. So that's how I would see it. Last one, I just think too much money. Too much money there for Kyren Williams. Way too much money. And then next one. Let's go to the last one here. Bijan Robinson. He was on the cheese list last year. I was proven correct. Nobody will say anything. I'm going to say this one more time. We need to stop pretending this is the generational player. He's not. I know everyone wanted to compare him to LaDainian Tomlinson coming to the NFL draft. It's just not correct. If you just listen to me, you'll know the truth. But if we can go back to, what did I say about him last year? What did I say about him last year? We'll go to the profile. But look, I comped him to a Barkley. I think Barkley is a reasonable comparison, but we need to stop pretending. Like, again, it's right here. I wouldn't have even picked him in the first round. Like, I just don't see generational talent. I would have picked him in the second or third round, maybe. But this idea that he's LaDainian Tomlinson is fucking insane. Like, totally fucking insane. How does anybody think he's the next LaDainian Tomlinson? Here it is. Here it is. Cowherd believes Bijan Robinson is similar to the LaDainian Tomlinson. No. Just never gonna happen. And I think people need to understand that that's not on the table for him. What a Tomlinson. Can we just pull that up? Just pull that up. Literally, as a rookie, he was over 12,000 yards as a rookie and 10 touchdowns. Then the following year, he went up to 600 or 1,600. Like, this ain't happening, buddy. like this ain't happening. If we go back, like, he didn't even rush for 1,000 yards as a rookie. And he was fairly efficient and did some stuff in the receiving game and had some targets, but this is not Tomlinson. If we go back to fantasy finishes, this will say everything right here. If we go back to fantasy finishes, he played a full year, played a full fucking season, and finished as RB12. If we go to points per game, let's go to points per game. Points per game. He was RB18 and played all the fucking games. Okay. You know, and if you want Robinson this year, again, if you want Robinson this year, he's your first pick, or he's $70 or $50, whatever. If you want Robinson this year, he's RB3 on Fantasy Pros. He is RB3 on Yahoo. He is RB3 on ESPN. Politics. And politics. He's RB3 on NBC. Or Matthew Berry. I'm not doing that. He's not on my top. He's not on my top 10 list. Like he's just not. I think you got Algier to worry about, which I don't think Algier's going away. I'm not saying he's like. I'm not like 186 carries last year. I don't think he's going away. And maybe that number even drops down more. Maybe it goes down to 150, but he ain't going away. And he's going to get some touchdowns. So he had 3 as a rookie, 4 last year. Add in another in the receiving game. He ain't going away. And this is this one. Run pass percentage, because this is going to go in a totally different direction. Because the Falcons have a new coach, and his name is Zach Robinson. So if we go to pass percentage, Atlanta was 29th in the league in pass percentage. They ran the ball a ton. This is where Zach Robinson's coming from. The Kevin O'Connell, Sean McVay brain trust. They're going to throw the ball way more. Way more. You bring in Cousins for a reason. And Bijan had his receiving numbers. Like, I don't think those are going to change. So if we're talking about a team that's probably going to go from 52% pass to 62% pass, and you're telling me you want Robinson? I don't know. This would make me nervous, and I'm not saying he sucks. I'm not saying he sucks. I would have picked him in the second round of the draft. I think he's a good football player. But we need to stop pretending that he's LaDainian Tomlinson, or that he's the next coming of I don't know, name whoever the fuck you want. All those guys back in the 2000 and the 2000 range, right? LaDainian Tomlinson, Priest Holmes, Larry Johnson, like those type of fantasy seasons, that ain't happening. Just not happening. So, yeah, I don't know what you want me to say beyond that, but it's just not happening.